This is Wandering Author here. Today I am at Saddler's Creek here in Kentucky. And I want to talk to you about concentrations of power, the Gilded Age, and a little bit about the Great Depression. So, Thomas Pikketty, a French economist, wrote a book called Capital in the 21st Century. Not the same book or even similar to the one written by Karl Marx. It's much different. Capital in the 21st century basically it looks at money and power from like a scientific lens, objectively speaking. And it's like a 900-page book. I have not read all of it, but I have read enough of it to get the gist of the book is simply that in human societies, power and wealth tends to concentrate into fewer and fewer hands over time. In fact, the only time that power doesn't seem to concentrate is during periods of violent upheaval. That's the way he phrased it. So, like the Civil War, World War II, some of our more violent episodes in our history have actually helped us equalize things. So, right now in the United States, our wealth inequality is actually worse than it was during the Gilded Age. The poorest people tend to have a little bit more than they did back then, but the wealthiest are even wealthier than they were at that point in time. In fact, just since coronavirus happened, we've begun to exceed the levels of inequality that was happening in the Ancien regime in pre-revolutionary France. Now that having such extreme concentrations of wealth is not abnormal in human history, it actually seems to be more the standard. Even during Rome's transition from the late Republic to the actual empire, one of the things that really accelerated the transition was the development of what were called latifunda, which were basically these plantation farms. Regular Roman citizens would be conscripted into the army and they'd be sent off to fight on the frontier, like in Hispania or Spain, what we'd call Spain today. While they were gone, their farms would fall into disrepair, and the wealthy patrician class of Romans, like what we might call like the small business owners in our society today, would end up buying the small farmers' plots of lands after they had fallen into disrepair for like pennies on the dollar. It ended up concentrating most of production to the hands of a handful of people. The last major time period this has happened in U.S. history would be like the Gilded Age, leading up to and including the Great Depression. The Great Depression started whenever wealthy Wall Street financiers kind of collapsed the stock market at the time, led to a huge wave of layoffs. At that point in time, the Federal Reserve was much more hands-off. The Federal Reserve we have today is kind of keeping things going. But what happened in the U.S. that took us from this extreme inequality to like the 50s and the 60s, where one man could support his whole family, his wife could stay home and all that stuff? Roughly speaking, they unionized and they began to coalesce. The IWCC, the Industrial College of Industrial Workers, helped to even the playing field quite a bit. What's the point for that as far as we're concerned today? I'm actually not 100% sure. Other than that, unionizing tends to be beneficial for the common people. Now, obviously, it's hard to take on concentrated power, but alone. But I just think it's important for us to remember some of our history, and as always, spend less, live more, and then So, wandering author reminding you guys that we are all the authors of our own lives, and I hope that you guys have a good day.